Piracy is the logical solution.
If buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing, which is why piracy is no longer seen as digital theft reserved for risk takers and your plug who knew a sketchy website. Now it's easier and more convenient than ever.
I have never pirated anything.
Movies, sports, live events, whatever you want for free. It's become so normalized that piracy sites are getting more yearly visits than every streaming service combined.
Because there's too many now. Streaming was a great idea. Get rid of cable, all these adverts. What a genius idea. And then came greed. Too many streaming services, and then too many subscription services. If you subscribe to all of them, you end up paying more than you were with cable or Sky. So no wonder piracy is on the rise. So can you actually blame anyone? And don't get me started on adverts when you already pay for the subscription. They're bringing in tiers to have ad-free or just with ads.
But this makes sense when you consider that every facet of the entertainment industry has been destroyed by corporations. Even if you're not a sports fan, you will relate to this struggle, because you need to see how insanely difficult it is just to watch a basketball game. I live in Oklahoma City, and I really wanted to follow the Thunder and the entire Western Conference a couple years ago, so I bought NBA League Pass for $110 for the season. Silly me.
$110 for the playoffs. Woo-wee.
For thinking that one streaming service would have every game. League Pass only lets you watch games that are out of market, which meant I couldn't actually watch the Thunder games because I live in Oklahoma City and those rights belong to the FanDuel Sports Network.
Oh, we know all about FanDuel. If you haven't watched my previous video on the betting epidemic in America, go check it out. As if you can't watch all of the games when you pay for it. That is the stupidest service.
And if the game was nationally televised, that was exclusively broadcast on ESPN or TNT, which meant I needed a cable package or another app like Hulu Live or Sling, just to catch the games literally happening in my city. As of right now, if you want to guarantee that you will be able to watch all of the NBA games in the US when they are actually happening live, you need to have ESPN, which requires you to have Hulu plus Live TV or YouTube TV or Sling Orange TV or with an upgraded cable package. Then you need Peacock, which is $11 per month. Then you need Prime Video, which is $9 per month, and ABC, which would come with your basic local cable subscription. The cheapest way to guarantee every game would be $66 in subscriptions and whatever your basic cable costs these days, which is on average about $25. So roughly $91 per month just to watch basketball.
That's a lot of money to watch the Thunder as well. Well, I mean, they're not too bad this year, are they? That's wild. In the UK, we have kind of something similar, whereas if a football game, football game is played at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, it can't be televised. You can't watch it, which means you're not paying anything because you're not watching anything unless you go to the game. The reason for that is they want more people in the stands. It makes sense, but it doesn't work practically, which also means that most people illegally stream sports, especially for the 3 p.m. games, because then the 12 o'clock game is on TNT, and the 5 o'clock game and 8 o'clock game are on Sky Sports. And then there's different channels for the FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League, Europa League, whatever. If you want to watch all of them, which I don't understand why you can't, you have to have multiple channels, multiple subscriptions, or you just pirate all of it. Not that I recommend that, obviously.
Cheapest. Now, me personally, I would never pirate anything. That is behavior I absolutely condemn. But I'm not surprised anyone who would do it when all you gotta do is go to one of the many widely available free websites, click the extremely clean and clear interface that says the exact game or event you are looking for, and just watch it for free. But honestly, we should have seen this terrible streaming climate coming from a mile away, because as they say, nothing good lasts forever. And
I mean, for just TV shows, not sports, it seemed okay. Netflix, Prime, Disney. That was the UK. I think in the US, Hulu was big at the start. 3's the max. Why does there have to be about 12 now?
Understand why piracy is so rampant today, we have to understand this detailed list of problems that piracy solves. Netflix used to be $8 per month, and it had a deep, deep catalog of some of the most popular shows ever made. The Office, Friends, Breaking Bad, Dexter, Family Guy, American Horror Story, Pretty Little Liars, Law and Order, and even some Disney and Pixar titles. They had the Harry Potter films, they had Star Wars, they had classic movies like Shawshank Redemption.
They've removed so much from Netflix now, probably in the US as well as the UK. I think it's because this Universal deal, they're going to have a separate app. I wonder if they're going to charge for the Universal Netflix app as like an extra. Of course they are. Greedy. Of course they are.
The Godfather, The Dark Knight. They even had Marvel titles before Disney Plus launched. It felt limitless, like the entire entertainment industry was in one app for the price of a fast food meal. Today, $8.99 gets you 9,000 shows you will never watch, and that's with ads. And if you don't want ads, no problem. That's $25 a month. Plus, every studio with a morsel of valuable...
That's too much just for one Netflix, just without ads. That's too much.
IP decided to make their own app. So instead of one library, you get 10 half libraries, each charging you separately. HBO Max, $21 a month. Hulu and Disney Plus, $19 a month. Peacock, $17. Apple TV Plus, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, Stars Play, BritBox, and niche ones like Shudder, Crunchyroll, Acorn TV all jumped into the fight, each charging $4 to $20 a month. I sometimes have this thought like, man, I wish I could just pay one price for all of the streaming services grouped together, and then I realized that's kind of what cable was. But streaming was supposed to be the solution to cable's outlandish prices and bloated packages, and yet...
So what happens now? Because it's too much. That's $200 if you want all of them, maybe more. You weren't paying that much for cable. If all of this was on cable, you wouldn't be paying that much a month. So what happens because this is too much? Will we go back? Are we going to go back to TV? The only logical thing I can really think that will actually solve this is if one company buys them all. Somebody big buys them all, and then it's just one, and they dominate. Then more will pop up. And then what do we do?
they are slowly turning into the very thing they sought to destroy. Check out this old residential cable service price sheet from 1993. Just your basic news and weather channels was the same cost as Netflix when they first launched. Adding just 2 or 3 premium channels like the Disney Channel takes the price from $8 to $20 to $27 per month. This is actually insanely expensive for the 90s, especially when you consider that you did not get to choose what content to watch or when you could watch it. And of course, you still had commercials. Streaming solved all of these problems, but in 2025, almost all of these problems are back. I recently wanted to watch The Founder after doing research for my fast food video, but Netflix would not allow me to watch it since I pay for the cheapest version of Netflix that has ads. I was annoyed, but I thought maybe it had something to do with McDonald's having some sort of strict licensing issue that forced Netflix to lock it behind the premium tier, but it turns out there are 138 movies and TV series blocked on Netflix advertising tier. For $8 per month, you cannot watch Spider-Man, White Chicks, Boys in the Hood, or even the Garfield movie. Half the time, you don't even know whether something
Not the Garfield movie.
isn't available or not because of licensing contracts, region restrictions, or just because you're on the wrong subscription plan. The end result feels exactly like cable again, paying more money just to unlock what you thought you were already paying for, thus making piracy the logical solution. You can go to these super cool websites that I never endorse because that is wrong and immoral, and just search basically any
Yeah, I've never been to any of these websites before, but it's useful information just to know. So you can talk about it, not to go on them.
movie and get a high definition download. However, cable being much more expensive actually did have a slight benefit that nobody realized at the time. The competition for ratings meant that the shows that survived were usually the best of the best. Every network was fighting for limited primetime slots, and if a
And now we just get slop over and over. Obviously, they flush out something good every now and then. Streaming services have brought us some fantastic TV, but there is so much nonsense. Some of it's so bad. But then we have IMDb, and this is why that's so fantastic. Because if it's below a 7, I won't watch it. Unless it's a horror film. Because I don't tend to get that big a score anyway. And sometimes comedies can be good even if it's not a 7. But for everything else, if it's a drama, and you are not hitting like 7.4, not worth a watch. Thank you, IMDb gods.
Show could not pull in millions of viewers week after week, it was canceled. There was no filler at primetime. Seinfeld, Friends, The Simpsons, The X-Files, Sex and the City, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I could go on and on. Networks weren't pumping out hundreds of new series every year just to fill catalog space. They were making sure the few shows they produced had the writing, acting, and budgets to succeed. And to no surprise at all, these old shows are still dominating streaming services today. In 2022, Seinfeld racked up 19.
I rewatch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Archer, Rick and Morty, The Simpsons, Friends, How I Met Your Mother, over and over again. I've got my daughter into them as well now, so she's watching them and then I can watch them when she's watching them without having to jump in properly. I think also there are so many good series in general, past and present. I don't have time to watch any of this stuff anymore. I have a list of things. I go to work and people are like, oh, have you seen this show or this show? I'm like, no, it's on my list. That list is like 100 series long and it goes back to shows that probably came out 10 years ago. I've watched the first series of a lot of them because I like to watch one series, move on to something else and then come back to it. But I'm struggling to come back because I don't have the time and there's too many good things to watch, apparently.
18.3 billion viewing minutes on Netflix, making it the 10th most watched show of that year. Compare that to one of their most popular originals, Wednesday, which was everywhere in 2022. Viral on TikTok, Jenna Ortega was launched into A-list fame. It was damn near a monoculture moment, yet it still drew fewer minutes than Seinfeld, a 30-year-old sitcom. Shows like The Umbrella Academy and The Rings of Power pulled in about half the audience of Seinfeld. Cable forced networks to compete for your attention in a way that streaming doesn't. And to take that one step further, today shows and movies are literally designed knowing that people are not all the way paying attention to them.
The Rip, the Matt Damon and Ben Affleck movie. By the way, I love Matt Damon. I've met him and he is the most lovely man in the world, honestly. However, in that movie, which I haven't seen yet, apparently, or you're probably about to say now, they talk about the premise of the movie and they say it out loud constantly throughout the movie because they know you're not paying attention and you're on your phone scrolling. It sounds really intelligent, but it doesn't work because if you are paying attention, you're like, why are you talking to me?
Netflix has leaned into what's called the second screen era, where they assume that most viewers are watching TV while scrolling their phones, cooking, or doing laundry. Hollywood writer, director, and producer Justine Bateman said, "I've heard from showrunners who are given notes from the streamers that this isn't second screen enough," which begs the question, why would someone give all of their attention to something that is only designed to be consumed with half of their attention? According to reports, Netflix execs are urging screenwriters to have characters announce their actions out loud so that viewers can follow along without looking at the screen. For example, "We spent a day together," Lohan tells her lover James in Irish Wish. "I admit it was a beautiful day filled with dramatic vistas and romantic rain, but that doesn't give you the right to question my life choices. Tomorrow I'm marrying Paul Kennedy." "Fine," he responds. "That will be the last you see of me because after this job is over, I'm off to Bolivia to photograph an endangered tree lizard." This kind of over-explaining feels completely unnatural, and real people don't talk like this. It makes what should feel cinematic like a boring audiobook. And look, I'm all for casual viewing. I know a ton.
And it's going to feel like AI. It's going to feel like you're watching AI or listening to AI.
Of my audience casually watches my videos while doing other things. But also, I make low-budget YouTube videos that are free to watch, not multi-million-dollar films behind a paywall. I don't know about you, but when I watch a movie, I like to pay attention. By training viewers to expect content that doesn't demand their full attention, Netflix is creating an audience that's even less likely to pay attention. And the less they pay attention, the less they care about quality. And as long as they feel just entertained enough, means they likely won't cancel their subscription. It's almost like they are conditioning the perfect audience who will barely pay attention to their content or their credit card bill so they can increase prices while lowering the quality for an audience who doesn't even notice. In the cable era, a show needed to be excellent to survive. Well, not forever actually. This started to die in the 2000s. Once cable became the dominant form of television in America, the few companies at the top could now take advantage of their market dominance. Cable prices climbed 40% in just 6 years, jumping jumping from about $34 in 2000 to $47 in 2006. Meanwhile, inflation only rose 14.3% in that same period. Cable companies such as Comcast, Spectrum, Dish, DirecTV, and Cox started bundling networks into giant packages with hundreds, sometimes thousands of channels. If you wanted to watch ESPN, you were forced to also buy Lifetime, QVC, the Golf Channel, MTV3, and whatever else.
What was MTV3? MTV3? I remember MTV2.
They decided to shove into the bundle. You weren't allowed to just pick the 5 or 6 channels that you actually watched. And now, streaming companies are doing a similar tactic. They flood their platforms with new shows and movies you will never watch because adding volume creates the illusion of value.
Netflix doing that with the boxing, and Amazon Prime been doing this for a while for a few different sports. Like, they'll be plaster it all over, like the tennis championships on. I don't care about the tennis championships.
Justifying their increasing price. Netflix alone released 589 new Netflix originals in 2024, just slightly over its 2023 total of 568. There can't possibly be nearly 600 new shows and movies worth watching every year, but it's all part of the bigger plan. Every year, Netflix originals slowly take up more of their catalog, and then they license less. In 2022, over 50% of their catalog was originals. Now, some of these originals are good. Ozark, Queen's Gambit, Beef are just a few off the top of my head.
Beef was fantastic. Beef was really good.
But the rest are mostly filler. They are watering down their product to save money instead of purchasing valuable shows. Because
I thought The Good Place was good. I thought that was alright. I didn't think it was too bad.
Licensing the movies and TV shows you actually want to watch cost a fortune. In 2019, Netflix lost both Friends and The Office, 2 classic, reliable sitcoms that were some of the most watched.
The Office, the US Office, yes, of course. Rewatched that so many times.
Shows on their platform after Warner Media and NBC pulled the rights for their own services. To fill that gap, Netflix struck a massive deal to acquire Seinfeld, reportedly paying over $500 million for global streaming rights, and that's only for 5 years. So they would have to spend another fortune to keep the show. And this is the cycle we're stuck in now. Streamers don't want to pay billions to keep the classics that people actually want to watch, so they crank out repetitive, boring, low-budget originals that are literally designed for you to halfway pay attention to. Then they slowly raise the monthly price because look at all this new, fresh, original content we're giving you. And users have been conditioned to only watch casually.
Hulu is crazy expensive there. In the US, I'm guessing Disney comes with Hulu, because we haven't got that here in the UK. We just have Disney Plus. I think I saw Disney Plus with Hulu. Makes sense if it's a double deal.
Anyways, so they barely notice the dip in quality. Plus, that's only one streaming service. Every company with a little bit of valuable IP started their own app, and they're doing the same exact system. So now if you want a library of great shows and movies, you need to subscribe to multiple services. The average household actively uses around 4 streaming apps, and 8% even access 10 or more. That equals about $69 per month, which is just about the same price that cable was in the early 2010s when everyone jumped to streaming. Piracy is the solution to all of these problems. Piracy reached a low in 2020 with 130 billion website visits, which by the way is still a ton. But by 2024,
that's a ton.
That number had risen to 216 billion.
Okay, that's even bigger.
And it's actually incredibly simple as to why. Gabe Newell, the founder of the online video game marketplace Steam, summarized this perfectly nearly a decade ago. We think there is a fundamental misconception about piracy. Piracy is almost always a service problem and not a pricing problem. If a pirate offers a product anywhere in the world, 24/7, purchasable from the convenience of your personal computer, and the legal provider says that the product is region locked, will come to your country 3 months after the US release, and can only be purchased at a brick and mortar store, then the pirate service is more valuable. In short,
and I completely agree, because people will happily purchase, they'll happily use their money on a dodgy Fire Stick or a dodgy box because it has everything in place. It's not about money, it's about convenience, and a little bit about money.
Convenience is key, and people are willing to pay, but why are they making it so complicated? The music industry got it right for the consumer. They created something so simple that it wasn't even necessary to pirate music anymore. At its peak, Napster had nearly 80 million registered users downloading and sharing music for free. By the mid-2000s, sites like LimeWire and BitTorrent were...
Could you imagine if Spotify didn't do that? If Spotify didn't own pretty much everything, and you pay for one service and all the music. Imagine if you had multiple streaming services for music. You have to use Spotify to listen to Bad Bunny, and then you have to have Apple Music for 1975 and Amazon Music for old school things like the Beatles. That would be wild. And we think that's okay with normal TV. Streaming services are mad.
Handling billions of illegal downloads every year. Year over year, music revenue sales were dropping, and the music industry executives were convinced it was because of piracy. That's when Spotify, Apple Music, and other music streaming services came around to essentially make the Netflix of music. However, these services are better because there is no exclusivity. No matter what service you pay for, you will have access to basically the same exact music as any other platform. One monthly price and nearly every song and album ever made. Now, this isn't necessarily all good. This has devalued music incredibly, and artists get fractions of a penny per stream, but unfortunately, the customer doesn't care because the service is better for them. But we might be at a tipping point with music streaming services because Spotify is seemingly taking a page out of Netflix playbook and prioritizing their own music over licensed music, but the problem is it's AI generated. But that's a whole different video. Compared to now, it seems like in the early 2010s, streaming services had it right. All they had to do was not change. Piracy was at an all-time low in the early 2010s because it was safer, easier, and not a financial burden to just pay.
This happened to a friend, obviously not me, but I would have, oh damn it. My friend would have Napster or Kazaa on their computer and download all these songs, and then the family computer would get so many viruses. And their dad would flip their lid. Like, why is the computer not working? Why is it so slow? It's because you wanted to download like Neo.
For the content you wanted to watch. Now, there are always going to be people who simply don't want to or can't pay. This is extremely common with pay-per-view events. For many years, Dana White and the UFC waged war against sites like Crackstreams, trying to convince everyone that he would get them shut down.
You kind of stirred the pot a little bit with the piracy, the online streamers. They want to come after you and give this thing away. So
I don't think I've ever watched a pay-per-view event ever that was worth the price it was supposed to be. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if there's something you've watched that was worth the ridiculous amount of money you paid. But I don't think I have.
Oh.
Any regret? Kind of maybe stirring the pot a little bit?
I'm glad you asked me about that because we got one. We got him. We're watching this guy right now. All you have to do is turn it on Saturday, and we got you. I can't wait. Turn it on Saturday, streamers, and see what happens.
Nothing happened. 4 years later, and you could watch any UFC fight crystal clear HD on a handful of different free streaming sites. Dana eventually realized he was losing the battle with illegal pay-per-view streamers, and to everyone's surprise, he actually made a deal that benefits the consumer now. In 2026, all UFC events will air exclusively on Paramount networks in the United States. That means 13 marquee numbered events and 30 fight nights will air via Paramount Plus. For $13 per month, you can get all the UFC events and all of Paramount's content ad-free. This is actually a monumental shift. For the first time ever, fans will have access to the fights at the lowest cost in history. But it's not all positive. Some suspect that this is the beginning of the UFC resorting to basically all the exact issues I have already raised with streaming services. Once the UFC moves fully to a streaming platform, they've got your money locked in, whether the card is stacked with superstars or filled with nobodies. That pressure—
Oh, so they'll just I'll have one good fight a month, and then the rest will just be all trash.
To deliver massive must-see events disappears overnight. And honestly, that's already been happening in the past couple years. The storytelling is basically non-existent, cards are bloated with fighters nobody cares about, their upcoming talent pool is getting less impressive and exciting, but now the cost of 13 marquee events is roughly the same price as one pay-per-view. So as long as you get one good card per year, it's technically worth the subscription. They quite literally just cheapened their product, so we should expect the quality to decrease even more. Also, fighters have traditionally been paid based on pay-per-view points, meaning if the card sold well, they got paid well. Once that model disappears, the UFC has to raise base pay for their top stars just to keep them happy. That makes those stars more expensive to book, so to save money, the UFC will inevitably have them fight less. Fewer high-profile matchups, more watered-down fight nights, and a whole lot of filler. Fans will pay less, but they also will get less. All of these companies across the entire entertainment industry, besides music, kinda, have overcomplicated their model of delivering content to customers for the sole purpose of squeezing every last dollar out of the end user. I believe most people are good people, and I don't think anyone expects to get quality entertainment for free. We were in a good sweet spot in the 2010s, but greed ruined it. Now the costs are higher, the content is worse.
But that's it, it's greed. Everybody wanted a slice of the Netflix pie. And who gets shafted in the end? You and me.
And the convenience is gone. I've canceled nearly all of my subscriptions or reduced to just the ad tier because I just don't watch as much. And I know I'm not alone. When the system no longer respects the consumer finds another way. That's why piracy doesn't feel like stealing anymore. It feels like the logical solution.
Good video and a good point. I want to know in the comments, I'm really curious how many streaming services you have. I think I have 3. Maybe I pay for 4. Maybe I need to cancel them all and then work out what to do next. And obviously I would never pirate anything, and nor would you, but just to help other people in the comments, maybe put down your favorite websites. And as always, like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers by the end of this month. Or the month after. We'll see.